Hey everyone, it's Stephanie again, and you are tuned into the review of Married at First Sight, Season 6, Episode 2. If you've not seen the show or even heard about the show, check out my first video, and it'll give you a little bit of a recap and explanation about the show. It's very cool. I think you should watch. You'll love it. So, with the episode last night, it was the wedding episode. And the first episode is all about the buildup of telling families that this is really happening and leading to the wedding. But this episode, they walk down the aisle and they see one another for the very first time. Of course, there are butterflies all around. Everybody is super nervous. Everybody's kind of like, okay, this is it. Like, this is not a joke anymore. I'm actually going to marry someone that I've never met. So you can see the anxiety, you can see the second guessing, which is only normal. Even though arranged marriages traditionally are something that has been happening in many cultures, we don't do that, and we haven't done that in a long time. And so Married at First Sight is kind of bringing back the whole idea of arranged marriages, which is really not new. So I'll kick it off with Jaclyn and Ryan. It was so sweet to see them together. They immediately had really good chemistry, and they look like a lot of fun. When I watched them throughout the ceremony and also throughout the reception, I got really good like best friend vibes from them. And I'm not sure that I see the chemistry just yet. I mean, they have good chemistry, but I feel like I'm seeing more of a deep-seated friendship. But that's an amazing thing because, you know, they always say love is friendship set on fire. So hopefully it develops, but it has so much potential because they just have fun together. You've only seen them, you know, for a short amount of time together, but they look like they have a really good time. You know, neither one of them takes themselves too seriously. The families were happy to interact with them and to meet each other. So it was a really good vibe to see. I'm excited to see how they evolve. Molly and John are picture perfect, and last week when I saw the pairing, I knew that they would be super cute together. You know, they're both happy with each other in terms of aesthetics, and you know, yeah, that might sound superficial, but the reality is, if you don't know someone and you've never seen them, the first thing you see is them, and if you're going to marry them for the first time, you want to be attracted to them. So you could tell that they both had some great physical chemistry, and that they got along well. What I thought was interesting and also like very sweet is after the ceremony when they were talking about what they do for a living, John just kind of came out and said, listen, I lost my job because of this. They didn't want to be affiliated with the show, especially if it didn't go in a good way, and so they let me go. But I don't care because this was more important. That shows a man who is determined. That shows a man who will do whatever it takes. And her response, even though he was nervous and maybe some other viewers were like, ooh, if I heard that, that would kind of turn me off. Her response was so lovely. It was so, oh, well, I'm sure you'll get something else. Like, he presents as a person who's very determined and will get what he wants. And she automatically picks up on that because she's like, you know, I'm sure you'll get something else. And as a spouse, you know, here's this big thing. At the very beginning of them meeting each other, a lot of times we don't want to talk about money or finances. Those are like hot button issues. Those are like hard things to be transparent about. So the fact that they kind of talked about that, at least at a superficial level at the beginning, without kind of, you know, spending weeks and weeks kind of avoiding it, was great. And she seems like she'll be super supportive. So I love that interaction with them because he was nervous about that. And I think a lot of people would be nervous to share that because oftentimes we get lost in our jobs or what we do. And so instead of identifying ourselves as who we are in such a holistic way, like I do all of these things and these things create me, sometimes we get connected to the things we do. I am a teacher, I am a doctor, I am a lawyer, you know, and so when those things are taken away, a lot of people often don't know how to define themselves. So I love that he's like super like, I'll get something else, you know, it is what it is. This is what I wanted for my life and this is what I'm doing. So I think that's really important. So tip for you, if that happens to you, if life throws you some cards that, you know, you weren't expecting to have to play, understand that it's not who you are. Who you are is not defined by, you know, what you do. That's a facet of who you are, but you have so many other things to offer. So I'll come back off my tangent. Okay, so the last couple is Shawniece and Jephte. They're a very interesting couple because in a lot of ways they are polar opposites. When his mom stood up, because last week, if you know, I told you like he comes from an island family and I kind of knew that his mom would not be on board. When his mom stood up and was like, "This is my son," I was like, oh God, like I literally stopped breathing because I was like, oh my God, what is she about to say? Is she about to ruin this? But it was beautiful because she gave Shawniece like a beautiful belt, and she called it the blessing belt. And I thought that that was such a huge thing for her. Trust and believe she's probably really not still on board, but she's on board for supporting her son. So she's going to embrace this woman. She's gonna still be like, you know, checking her out, but she's gonna embrace her. And that was so refreshing because it only makes it easier for him to embrace the process, and it makes it easier for her to build a relationship with her mother-in-law, which is very important. So that was very cool to see. I also love, like, during their vows, if you watch, Jephte is very reserved. He's very shy, and she is the wild child. She has a good time. She says whatever. And that will be a nice balance sometimes, and I'll tell you why it's only sometimes, but that will be a nice balance for him and help him to bring a different facet of his personality out. Because during their vows, or I think maybe when the pastor was talking, she grabbed his hand and said, you know, are you still nervous? And he's like, yeah. And she was like, you don't have to be. And she like shook his hand. That allows him to get comfortable. It creates a space for him to let loose, which he needs. If you watch it, he needs a chill pill. He probably gets really cool and comfortable when he's known you for a while, but this process does not give you that option. So she is going to force him to get to a space where he can let loose a little bit, because that tie is tight. Like the button is like all the way up here with him. He's super sweet though, but it's definitely an uncomfortable situation for him, and it's just funny to see her like literally all over the place and him be like so buttoned up. How I think that'll work is because she will help him expand when he needs to, and he will pull her back when she needs to, because you know she needs to be pulled back a little bit. You know, I don't know if you guys watched, but during the first moments after they got married, they were just talking about, I don't even remember what they were talking about, but something very basic. And she was like, yeah, I just got through, 4 years of being single through masturbation. And he was like, oh my God, like slow pitch me. It's exactly what he says, like slow pitch me, meaning like, give me a second before you throw that out there. You can see that he's reserved. And I think that even though it's a beautiful part of her that is kind of like wild and crazy, I think he will appreciate a woman who knows when, to be a little more reserved for him. This is not like a sexist thing where she should be XYZ, but based on what I'm seeing for him, I think that he would appreciate someone who kind of knows when to turn it on and turn it off. Because let's fast forward to the reception. She gave him a lap dance during the reception, which, I got married like 7 months ago. Like, it's a lot, it's a lot. I don't know how low I could drop it with like making eyes with my grandma. So it's a lot at a reception, and for the first time, like people don't know you at all. It's not even like people have known you and they know, oh, she's so crazy. Like, no, they've never seen you before, and now it's like, it's a nasty dance for your new husband, which is like so appropriate in a different space. And he, although I think the male part of him obviously was happy about that, he couldn't even get past the fact that it's like, oh my God, his mom is in this room and all of his family's in this room, and it's just not comfortable for him. So that's when she probably will need to learn how to pull it back, because it's not fun if it's not fun. So it might be fun for you, but if your spouse isn't having fun, or if it's embarrassing them or making them feel uncomfortable, then you have to recognize that and know, just how to turn it on and off, or how to, be mildly inappropriate. Like, when you're married, you can, like, you got that green card to kind of go and do whatever you want to do, and everybody celebrates that. Like, oh, they're married, so you can do that. You just got to know how to do that. And then just give him time to get there, because I think if she pushes it too far and just kind of not learning to recognize the signs that he's giving, which you can recognize the signs that people give, you know, off the rip. You don't have to know them for a long time. If you meet somebody for the first time, if they're not into it, you know it. If they feel some type of way, you know it. So I think she needs to pay attention to the signs instead of, you know, getting wrapped up in the excitement, because I think if she takes it a little too far, it'll turn him off. You know, she has to give him time to get comfortable. On the flip side, he needs to kind of like, you know, this is unfortunately not a marathon. It's more of like an extended sprint. And that's just what it is. So a lot of people will say, well, you know, they just met each other and blah, blah, blah. Well, this is season 6. So if you're getting married at first sight, like it's kind of not what we identify as the norm. So he kind of has to give himself a little bit more to the process, and he has to push himself. You know, he might not be comfortable, but this whole thing is not about being comfortable. So he has to push himself. But there's a lot of potential there, and I'm excited to see it. So subscribe if you like the video. Subscribe if you want to see all the weeks afterwards. I'll be doing these weekly reviews for Married at First Sight season 6. So I will see you next week. Have a good week.